You okay if I stay?
Hey, I'm Dr. Incident Q&R, and we're live streaming from Orlando Hamcation for this year's ARRL Southeastern Division Convention. And this is the Collegiate Amateur Radio Forum. We're here in one of the meeting rooms, and there's college students that have gathered to share some ideas and their hopes for reinvigorating amateur radio at our nation's colleges and universities. So enjoy, and just get started.
Well, the other way to do that is make sure you
Okay, we'll wait for the high sign from my brother.
that's as big as I can get. Feel free to email us as a website.
You good, Tony? So we're recording this in case anyone's curious. We're also live streaming it. I think on multiple. I think Doug or Bob, you have.
We're on the ARRL Facebook page.
So the Facebook page is live. I know Sterling's got live on YouTube. My brother's recording it, and he's got a few cameras around the room and audio recorders, so that we'll get that all going, because we really want, this is sort of the first collegiate amateur radio thing. We want to make a splash and sort of jumpstart the community. So we got recorders and stuff, and that'll be fun. So. And for those of you who are curious what this room is doing right now, this will tell you we are doing the Collegiate Amateur Radio Forum here at Orlando Hamcation. I'll pass it off to Jay here. I'll do some brief introductions of this, and then we'll get going.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. This is really a student-driven forum, so I'm just going to make a brief introduction. I'm the trustee at the University of Florida. As you can see, the odd thing is the trustee is a dentist, so all my students are smarter than me when it comes to electronics and amateur radio, and they run circles around me. So I learn more than I give, you might say. But thank you for being here. It's extremely important to have these forums, get off to the discussion, and get strategies for making your club successful. College is a vibrant time of your life, and we'd like to see ham radio be part of it. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Andy Galuzzi, KK4LWR.
So I'm president of Gator Amateur Radio, and I'll be sort of moderating this. It's not going to be a presentation. It's going to be a speak up and be involved in this. It's more of a forum. We have a couple of announcements and people speaking in the beginning, and then there was a survey that went out on Twitter with the league, that went out on the Curry Facebook page, it went out on Reddit with questions from amateur radio people trying to figure out what we should talk about. And I got a couple of slides of those questions for us to discuss to hopefully make our clubs better. Then at the end, we'll have some giveaways, and there's a social tonight as well. So with that, I'll pass it over to Tom to give us an update from what the league's doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andy and Scott and everybody and Jay who organized this. You can see I'm wearing my pen shirt. My wife told me not to wear it. It was unbecoming. It was made for a younger and slimmer me. I see there's some freshmen in the back row. Don't be shy about intermingling with the upperclassmen. They're not as cool as they think they are. This is a really important initiative for this community, not for ARRL, but for this community. It is the bridge between an early interest and a lifetime satisfying experience in amateur radio. It's made possible in part by the generous gift of Dr. Ed Snyder from Yale University and the W1 ISD Family Foundation, and we're very grateful, obviously, at the league for that donation, but I also want you to know how important you are as a mission. When somebody steps up and puts big money down on a mission, that's important. It gets the notice of our board, it gets the notice of our membership. I'll stop right there because I have 3 millennial sons, and there's nothing that I can tell them about anything. So I'm just going to leave and say thank you very much.
So one other brief announcement, we have Ken Simpson, WADK, on the Quarter Century Wireless Club. They have some scholarships available. If you didn't know, the league has scholarships. I think they were just due. But there are still some available.
The brochure's here.
And we have brochures and stuff, so if you're a student, definitely pick up on these. If you're an advisor for a club, pick these up for your students, because I think they get under-awarded. There's probably a lot of hands that don't apply, and it'd be great. So,
actually, I'm wearing a couple different hats. I am the director of Quarter Century Wireless Association, and as soon as we say QCWA and Quarter Century Wireless Association, some of you guys think, oh, those old fogies. Well, I hope we're not quite into that category. But one of the major things that QCWA does for hams, and I emphasize for hams, is we have a very, very sophisticated scholarship program. QCWA this year will be awarding 24 scholarships with an aggregate of $36,000. For those of you that can't do the math, that's $1,500 a piece, okay? Some of you get that figured out already. And they are $1,500 a piece. Last year we did $21.5K. The year before we did $76K scholarships. So QCWA is involved with that. And one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is to apply for scholarships. Now, ARRL has a scholarship program. There are other organizations within amateur radio that have scholarship programs. ARRL administers their own and has quite a sophisticated program. QCWA works through the Foundation for Amateur Radio. FAR is based out of the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. And if you do not know about FAR, you should. Bottom line is, go to farweb.org. They're 501c3 nonprofit, so it's org. Don't put .com in or you'll get lost. You guys know that better than I do. So anyhow, but also in addition, I'm going to put on a different hat now. The Friendship Amateur Radio Club in Ocala, Florida, which is, we're just a small local amateur radio club, roughly 40 members, also has a scholarship. It's $1,500 available. Why do I mention that? Because our scholarship has restrictions on it. It is restricted in that you must be a resident of the state of Florida. Priority given to Marion County residents because that's where the radio club is, okay? Makes good sense. With second priority given to the surrounding counties. That includes, among others, Alachua County, which includes the University of Florida. FAR has done something that I think is the right thing to do. They have declared, for their purposes, that if you go to, and I'm going to use UF as an example, if you go to the University of Florida, you are a resident of Alachua County because you're there more than you're any other place, regardless of where you may be an official, quote, resident on your driver's license or something like that. But if they also have a scholarship that says that you must be a resident of Wisconsin, and you come from Wisconsin, you're also eligible for that one. So, hey, you get the best of both worlds, if you will, on things that way. So I want to encourage you to apply for these scholarships. Deadline for the application is the middle of April. It's April 15th. That sounds like income tax. That doesn't sound like a good date. The bottom line is, now is the time to apply. If you're like most college students, you'll tend to put it off to the last minute. Sorry, but that seems to be the way it goes. Don't do that, but apply now. But if you apply to FAR, you're going to find a couple things. One is 7 pages of application. Yeah. Why? Because they ask you questions about ham radio. And how long have you had a license? And what have you done for ham radio? Are you a member of if you're already in college, of your college or university radio club? Andy, I'm sure you would like to get all of them to join that are up there. Or if you're not yet, do you participate in the local radio clubs? Do you participate in other things? It's asking you questions above and beyond the normal scholarship application. The other thing that FAR does, and this applies to the QCWA scholarships and the Friendship Radio Club, is that they do something that I think is very important. Now, I think I am safe to say that most of you in this room, you have a ham license, you probably are technically oriented. I'm going to even go to the point to say probably engineering oriented, that kind of a mindset, if you will. I do not like scholarships that say, write a paragraph about something of the sort, and they look at it, and if you use the right buzzwords and the right flowery little whatevers, you get the scholarship, and if you didn't use the right little buzzwords, they say, we'll throw him out. You know, and some of you that have done that, you know very well what I'm talking about on that. FAR does not do that. They instead have all these questions. They ask you the things, you answer them, and they're not tough. They're just questions, you know. I mean, I hope you know what class license you have. You know, that's pretty obvious. But then they rank all these things by points. Yeah, I'll keep moving, Jay. they rank all these things by points, and the guy that gets the most points wins. Can't beat that. So apply. There's some brochures up here on QCWA. And just one other thing, in addition to QCWA and the Friendship Radio Club, FAR also does YLRL, and I think they said, what was it, 90-some different scholarships. So one application is good for 90-some scholarships. You can't beat that, guys, so go for it. So, thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, after the forum, if you guys want to come up, there's both League and QCWA brochures over there on scholarships. So now I want to get into more of the discussion. How many people in here participated in the survey that went out, either through Reddit or the League? So a few of us. It sort of asked you, what did you want to talk about during this forum? It really sort of broke down to two main sections. These logistical questions, and we'll go through each one of them and sort of share our knowledge, and then as well as some technical activities that we'd like to see get done. So we'll start digging through the first one here, recruitment. So what do I mean by recruitment? It's not just getting more students active in your club, it's also making your communities aware of amateur radio, especially your college campuses. And how do you do that, and how are you successful? So I'll throw the ball out to the audience on this one to start, and give us ideas on how you're doing it at your campus and what's been successful or what hasn't. Tony?
So a couple years ago when I was an undergrad, we did school called Roundup at Rose Holman. And one of the things we thought was kind of neat was we set up in the hallway outside of our shack during the middle of the day a few tables, put out HF rigs, and it worked school called Roundup from there. We had tons of people come up, just ask what we were doing, basically. And a few kids, once we did that, were basically interested in coming to a club meeting and seeing what we were doing. So putting it out, our club meetings are in the evening, so no one's in the halls really during that, but if we did during the middle of the day, people saw that we existed, and that was a big thing for us, especially for a small school.
I guess we started teaching a technician class last semester. We only had 4 or 5 people in it. But this semester we just started 2 weeks ago with a moderate amount of advertising and networking with some IEEE meetings. We have in the neighborhood of 20, 25 people taking the amateur radio technician class. A lot of them have already signed up to take a test here in early next month.
And we were talking in the hall beforehand, and I think you brought up a great point in terms of recruitment. Do you mind mentioning the sort of demographics of the people?
I was really surprised that a lot of them were more computer science than electrical engineering, because I'm one of the only electrical engineers in the club that's really active, and a lot of them are either computer science or computer engineering. I think that has to do with a lot with the software-defined radio, and there's been a lot of stuff going on with Hack5, you guys know what that is. There was even a presentation on doing some radio hacking, and a lot of people got interested in doing that, so we got a lot of comp-sci people from that.
Has anyone done any outreach through using a Hack RF or a Faraday RF or any of the software-defined radios? Not like the Flex, but like one of the more sort of CS computer sciencey ones? So I know we at the Gator Amateur Radio Club, we put an SDR play up and we hooked it up to our beam, and that's become quite popular. It's wired into one of our computers. We have several HF positions, and that's become quite popular in addition to our Flex, just because you can see so much of the band and you can do some cool stuff. I don't think we have anyone who's actively started developing anything with it yet, but in terms of getting like SDR sharp up and running and just getting to the basics of it, it's definitely something that I think a lot of students gravitate towards. Is anyone here familiar with the Maker community? Okay, so most of the room, I think the maker community is probably the next generation of hands in that sense. I think a lot of us who are probably under 30 in the room would consider ourselves in some part of maker in one way or another. And everyone's familiar with, like on Reddit, RTL, SDR, the group there. There's a lot of stuff sort of in the maker community going towards this low power SDR. So the thought is maybe, you know, getting clubs interested in maybe some activities, and I'll bring this up in the next slide on some of the more technical stuff, but that might really help in terms of recruitment, is really getting into software-defined target radios. I mean, the cheap little $12 TV tuner, you know, radios are wonderful to get people on the air. So, any other thoughts on recruitment? Sterling?
I think with that same vein, I think a lot of universities have like the IT infrastructure and the network infrastructure to put up remote receivers using RTL SDRs and using like websdr.org or OpenSDR, these, you know, places where you can go online and basically tune up all over the band. And that's like really cool for your students to get engaged and actually see what's on the air wherever they are, on the phone, on their computer, in their dorm, or, you know, away from college. That grounds it at home rather than having to look up a receiver in New Jersey or Helsinki. It'd be cool to have one, oh, it's at our university, you know. So I think we've been thinking about that. I'm from Tripoli with ARRL. I'm a graduate of that. So we've been thinking about that here and there because our antennas are not being used by any other radios during that free time. And if lightning hits it, well, a $20 dongle is a pretty good lightning arrestor compared to a $6,000 flex radio. So.
You know, it's funny you bring up lightning. I was at a Gainesville Amateur Radio Society meeting a few weeks ago, probably a few months ago now, and they brought up lightning tracking as another potential avenue. There's a few friends I have up at Virginia Tech, Magda and blanking on John, I want to say his name is, who are up at Virginia Tech's Amateur Radio Club.
Nathaniel Frissell, Nate Frissell? Nathaniel Frissell?
No, not Nathan.
Oh.
I'm trying to think, I think it's John, yeah. They're both meteorology majors, and they use amateur radio in terms of tracking storms. So, I mean, I think it's definitely something, you know, we talk a lot about the CSs and sort of the double E's and even the maker community, you know, but I think it reaches well beyond that. I know, Jay, you're a dentist. I mean, what got you into amateur radio? What got you to... So, for some backstory, he put our club station up in the dental school and put our antennas on top of the dental school. So, we are very much embedded in that, you know.
I wasn't a dentist at age 12, but it was a him.
Yeah.
One verb for proceeding.
But we've had Scott, we had Scott Harden.
There's a medical amateur radio group.
Yeah, so there's been a few dentists that have come by, so I think it is something definitely applicable beyond that. We've gotten a few people wandering in because they're curious what the random room is on the 12th story of the dental tower. So, yeah.
From Michigan State University, we have an event called Sparticipation with the Spartans, and we get about 8,000 or 9,000 freshmen, but actually all classmen, men and women, out on the field, and we put up a PSK 31 station with a big antenna, which had a sign on it saying that we were talking to Europe or something like that. And that attracted some attention. We collect email addresses and we develop a mailing list. It's questionable how much that actually produces, but it actually, we show ourselves on campus in that particular way.
So I know one thing I had done long before I ever got part of Gator Amateur Radio, and we haven't done it really since, was tailgating at the football games or basketball games. Does anyone do that?
To jump on the back of Ed's stuff, some of the other stuff we've done for recruitment is we hold a special event station. We do a virtual tailgate before every home game, 2 hours before every home game. We did that 2 years ago with a special QSL card, and then we also would offer you a poster on which you could put those QSL cards in their specific spots. One of the takeaways from it was that not many people wanted to come to a special event station on a football Saturday. So what we ended up doing was we ended up doing a remote rig setup with a Kenwood 480, which the students can actually check out. It works on the Wi-Fi system anywhere. And the whole idea of being out where the high traffic areas is a plus. The SDR thing, if you've got a flat screen that you can use, just leave that thing on in the hallway, watch with the waterfall going on, so they can see that. The other thing we do is we do Open Shack Tuesday, so we have somebody in the shack every Tuesday night. We use that, we did that on purpose so we could participate in the Yale Amateur Radio Club's Tuesday night Echolink-Net. If you haven't checked into that, it's a lot of fun. They make it, they have a different question they ask every week, and they generate a lot of interest from colleges around the area.
Very cool. Tony?
Kind of on the topic of the tailgate, going back to that a little bit, we did, a couple of years ago, we did a homecoming station. So we set up out on our quad, a tent on homecoming, had a radio, HF radio out there, had a TV out there showing QSL cards that we had gotten, and we actually got a lot of alumni come by. We sold t-shirts, and a lot of alumni bought t-shirts and gave money. So it was also a good way for us to raise a little money from alumni and, again, show off the club. It was right in the middle of the walkway.
So that sort of segues nicely, though, into where we're sort of going later on in these discussions, but I think maybe we should move on to funding. That's probably the most difficult thing for clubs on any campus, regardless if it's amateur radio or anything else. How do we afford to do what we want to do? And I'll talk a little bit about what we've done up at UF, because I think what we've done is really cool, and others might want to emulate it. I'd love to hear what other schools have done as well. So UF, we've had a long history. We've been there since 1934. We've been a student government club. We've not been a student government club. We've done all sorts of things, but was it 2013 we started a nonprofit of our own called Friends and Alumni of Gator Amateur Radio, or Alumni and Friends of Gator Amateur Radio, or AFGAR, called for short. And it is purely a alumni network of sorts, and it's set up as a nonprofit organization where they can donate directly to the club. The club can make loans to the university, so we actually have a 10-Tech Orion station donated, well, on loan, sort of a permanent loan from AFGAR to the club. We've had antennas donated or loaned, antenna work donated or loaned through that. And it's made up of, both alumni, faculty, staff, and some students. And it's a great way for us to sort of get money. Jay, if you want to chime in on that?
Well, we found it was always difficult if you bought a piece of equipment and you wanted to move it under university rules. It was almost impossible. So this way you can go ahead and lend it to the club, and then when you want to replace it, just go ahead and put another piece of equipment in there. And that way you get the continuity too. Also you have leadership input. We get the students involved. Because students come, students go. You have your ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys and club activity. But that way you have a steady stream of support.
And the equipment is really an interesting thing for us. I don't know what other universities are like, but we get an asset tag. And once it gets an asset tag, it's state property, and moving that thing takes an act of God. So, if we want to sell it or something, it's got to go through a big process. We really aren't ever going to see the money from selling it. It's going to go to the University of Florida. So that makes it hard. If we have a flex that we want to trade in for a new flex, we can't really do that with an asset tag on it. But if it's loaned from the nonprofit, that gives us that flexibility. So, Ensign, you said you?
Yeah, exactly. That's similar to how ours is. With a lot of our main high dollar equipments is on essentially permanent loan from the campus, because when they get ready to get rid of something.
We're kind of in a strange situation. We've had a lot of equipment donated to our club. So we're almost to the point where we have more donated radios than radios we bought. Some of the radios were bought with SGA money, and most of those have asset tags. But there's also, I don't know why, but there's a couple of faculty who bought radios for their labs, and we ended up inheriting those when those faculty left.
Like a
At least
440 power ramp, that's a...
At least one of those radios came from a professor who was actually doing satellite work. And we got his satellite radio, which is
what school is that?
UCF.
University of Central Florida.
Yeah, so we've got a mix of stuff from different sources.
So I guess just make yourself aware, the faculty aware that you exist and could use some surplus items before it gets sent through the official surplus channels if they can route it that way. So we're friends with people who have those items readily available.
But sometimes getting that asset tag is also handy. For example, we put up a DMR repeater. We got a nice Motorola SL5700, and getting that with an asset tag on, the electrical engineering department actually bought it for us at UF. It's got an asset tag, and that is something that we don't have to worry about the school ever wanting to take down or move, because it's something they own and they've invested in. It's, we don't have to worry about someone messing with it, because it is state property now. So there are some advantages definitely to doing that. So any other thoughts on how to get funding, maybe, besides just how we've gotten around school rules or whatever with the funding we have? How about actually raising it? Is student government still popular, or has everyone sort of found other avenues?
Avoid it when possible.
We've done student government in the past, but recently we haven't done it. just because it wasn't convenient and we weren't looking for the money. But we also hold a semi-annual tailgate just
Like
for
a swap meet
camps,
tailgate.
swap meet tailgate that's separate from the football tailgates, and we have to word that very carefully on our forms. But we get a little bit of donations from that. And, actually, we sell a lot of junk there and get more money from selling the junk than we do from donations.
There's a lot of junk and stuff.
During the swaps, we'll often get a lot of donated surplus gear from just homies who want to give it to us. Exactly.
Yeah, some of our donated radios came from that direction, not all of them, but it probably just because the community is aware of us, we get donations from them. In other words, not through the tailgate, but because of the tailgate.
So that sort of segues nicely, since we've talked about sort of the limitations and the advantages of student funding through the universities. We all have to work within these limitations. How do you deal with that? How do you do your antenna work? I see some chuckles because I know we deal with the same thing at UF.
For friends with the building manager.
Yeah, for us it's evidently students can't climb 180 feet in the air. That's frowned upon for some reason. I can't imagine why. Yeah, how do you guys deal with that and work within that? Or does everyone just contract out to the best, tower people they can find?
We have, in the Lansing area, we have guys that put up TV antennas as an alternative to digital television, and we hired them to climb our tower and put a new beam on.
And just something simple. I mean, we were at the point where we were able to go on the roof with someone from facilities. We couldn't go on our tower. So when we did have to contract someone out for at least our dipole, we made sure they put up good pulleys so that in the future we could access it all from the roof alone.
And we've done that at UF as well.
Try to do what we could without having to contract out in the future, but some stuff we were just, that was our only choice.
Yeah, we put up a VHF tower, about a year and a half ago, and that required a crane. It's on top of a 12-story building, and then we had them put pulleys up there so that we could do exactly that. Any other thoughts on that? Cool. So alumni and professional networks. This was one that I was surprised to see from the survey results that came up multiple times. But using amateur radio as a way to sort of network with other people. I don't know if anyone else has wandered around the RV section or anything here, but you really meet some cool people here that have great life stories or are expert engineers in one thing or another. And you sort of build this professional network. I know we sort of keep our alumni close at UF through AFGAR, but how do any of the other clubs sort of have that as a marketing option? Because I think for a lot of students, that might be something to consider. I want to join amateur radio, I want to get connected with these people because I want to be an electrical engineer, and that opens me up to that community. Does anyone else do that? Wow, crickets.
I mean, we're a smaller school. Where I've experience with this part, Rose-Hulman is a smaller school, which had a fair number of alumni who are hams, but we couldn't really start a foundation or an organization formally. But we at the very least had a Facebook group that was open invite. I just started inviting a few alumni who I knew, and they invited a few others. So we at least have a central place where we post our own updates, in addition to our website. But our Facebook group, we have pictures, show what we're doing, that sort of thing. So even on a low level, keeping alumni involved, inviting them to the group so they stay around, that's been a good tool.
And I think it's also a way to get a job. I mean, I know, so full disclosure, Tony's my brother, in case everyone hasn't put that together yet.
And learning about radio astronomy. And then I worked in the EMC lab at S&T, building antennas, learning about vector network analysts, analyzing and reverberation in anechoic chambers. And from that, you just generate a huge network. And eventually I got at Boeing doing radio communications work on fighter jets. And having ham radio on your resume was the reason why I got that, because my boss was introducing me to everybody else on the floor, saying, "Oh, this is our ham. He's our new radio guy." And I was like, "Well, I guess I know why I got this job." And it ended up being really good.
Yeah, that happened to me too. When I was in my third year at UF, they always tell you to join clubs that have something to do with what you're learning in school. And so I like signal processing. I'm like, well, radios, that's a lot like signal processing. So I joined the amateur radio club, and then Andy convinced me to get my technician and my general in the same day. And then I ended up putting it on my resumes. And in one of my emails my senior year, which I wasn't getting much response from employers, I put my call sign in extra class radio operator. license on my resume, and the email from the secretary of my current employer that I just started working with, and it got their attention, and I got a job, and it's awesome, and all because of my amateur radio.
Yeah.
The UCF Club over the years has had quite a few members that got jobs directly from their experience within the club, both through the resume and actually just through meeting people while they were in the club. Got hired straight from one case a professor hired him, and the professor needed help with National Instruments work on signal processing, and the National Instruments hired him.
So I mean, I think I'm someone who's hopefully going to graduate soon. I'm going through the job hunt as well right now, and I'm definitely including it on everything. I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about, in collegiate amateur radio, is that professional network, and especially what some of the hams before us have done, what they've had to deal with, and you hear some of the old war stories with tubes, and we're trying to restore radios and stuff. There's a lot of experience there, and you can get a meeting with some of these people purely because you're an amateur radio operator. It's that common ground. And I think that's something that sort of ties back into recruitment. That's something to sort of play up when you start saying, this is a community of what we have 800,000 hams in the U.S. right now. So it's a relatively small community of people, but it's all people that are very passionate. So getting into that community and networking within it can definitely be a huge career boost. And for us trying to encourage collegiate amateur radio, what a way to get people involved.
Hey, I just added that it doesn't even have to be for technical or engineering employment. I worked for J.P. Morgan, and I got calls 2 or 3 or 4 of them a year from a ham, particularly an international ham looking to get into the training program. And you got to take a call from a ham. You just got to return the call. So use it. Play in traffic. It's a powerful connection.
And it doesn't have to be hams just from your school either. Like
No,
the number of
absolutely
hams
not.
I've talked to on the air that I've become friends with and recurringly talked to, and they've said, "Oh, you're looking for a job? Oh, you gotta look here." Or, "Oh, I used to work there," and you sort of get a little bit of insider information. So I think that's something that we don't play up enough.
You're talking a lot about engineers, but hams come from all different walks of life, and it's very important that you pass the word around on campus that ham radio is an activity that a lot of different kinds of majors would be interested in. The other thing I wanted to say is that alumni play an extremely important role. In the lean years when amateur radio goes down, takes a kind of a sagging approach on campus, sometimes the alumni have to kind of hold the fort until some student leadership shows up, or just students. Students are one thing, and then student leadership is another extra on top of that. And so we're working on building that back up again.
Can't graduate, Andy, we keep you forever. I can help with that.
Dr. Sain's on my PhD committee. So with that, I'm going to segue into some of the technical questions we got. Probably the most common technical question we got, and I think this is because space is just awesome, was on working Oscars. And not just working Oscars, but building satellites. I've had a number of people ask me this, and I refer them directly to AMSAT when they ask me these sorts of things. But so I know UCF has a satellite station. We've got 2 satellite stations plus a whole bunch of mobile satellite stations up at UF. Satellite work was one of the things that a lot of people asked about or wanted to bring up in discussion. So I'll throw that to the floor. What are your guys' thoughts on satellites? Do we have questions on how to do it, or getting people active? What are your thoughts?
Find a research project that wants help with the communications. That's one thing we've got going on right now, is that we have a CubeSat project that one of our members is actually, is he the advisor for it?
He's a lead developer.
Yeah, so he's like the lead developer on it. So they immediately deferred to us to help with all their ground station, that kind of stuff,
And the satellite itself.
We got members of the club that are building transceiver for the satellite and for the ground station, and we're probably going to end up building a dish, and we're refurbishing the club's ground station to talk to it.
It doesn't just have to be satellites either. It could be a high altitude balloon as well.
Testing before the satellite.
Yeah.
One thing that would probably be, it would be good for the university from a public relations standpoint, but pair with a local middle or elementary school and do an ARRS project. It takes a lot of work, but that really gets a lot of people to notice what you're doing. It's going to pan out amongst the families that are participates. And, it's a lot of work, but, it takes about a year to get the whole thing done. But
That's a great idea. Everyone knows what the ARRS program is? Yes? No? Okay, so that's something that you can coordinate with any, was it elementary, middle, or high school?
I think so, yeah.
So, reaching out, for a collegiate club to reach out to their local communities and just start saying, hey, we know how to do this, why don't we go talk to the International Space Station? Yeah.
We did an ARRS contact last year, and we partnered with an organization, and they didn't even know that this was possible. So a lot of your schools don't even know this is out there, right? Similar to what we were saying before, we have a community, but it seems like everybody hides, and we don't promote as well as let's get out there. They're not going to come to us, therefore we'll go to them approach. But so we offered, and they said, well, this sounds really interesting, but we don't know how to do the technical side. I said, we'll cover you on the technical side. You have to fill in the education plan and a technical plan. We're like, do the educational plan, which they've already done for grants and stuff, so they were very familiar with the process. And when it came time to the technical side, we took care of that for them, and then we marched down and we got our contact, and everybody was happy at the end of the day. So that's a good opportunity, as you're saying. Get out there if you have people and just say, hey, did you know this is possible? Meet with the science teacher is usually your best bet, and see if they're interested. They can push it through the school to put it part a little bit in their curriculum, and then work with your radio club to foster that.
I think that'll also inspire a lot of students that maybe are nervous about working in Oscar to finally learn those skills, learn how to track and all that, and be able to actually make that contact. Because, oh man, I got to learn that. We're all students. We all know, like, oh, man, I don't have to worry about that, but I have this deadline due tomorrow for physics. Well, suddenly you have this deadline. Man, I got to talk to the International Space Station. That's a bit of a deadline I need to get sorted out. So.
You don't want to look like a fool in front of the middle school students.
Yeah, or in front of NASA, right?
NASA will weed that out very quickly.
Yeah, trying to tie this back into also the recruitment angle of things. Scouts has a radio merit badge. One of the things that we can do as clubs is to reach out to the scout troops and offer our assistance to them and start earlier than when they get to college.
Yeah.
I think it's the second weekend of every October is Jamboree on the Air.
Yep.
Third weekend.
Third weekend, okay. I was guessing.
And JODA's a great thing to reach out to. We were talking a bit about this before the meeting, and I had some information up here. So the students, or the scouts that do JODA, are future collegiate amateur radio operators. So it behooves us to reach out to them and to participate in JODA, either go to a unit in your area or invite them up to your station. Yeah, if you want.
Just to carry on that, two most important things I stress for scouts who are interested in radio scouting. It's such a broad, because now there's at least probably 20 different merit badges related to science, technology. There's robotics, there's radio merit badge, there's signs and signals with texting and CW. But the two most important things looking forward for people who are building careers is if you're able to, and many of you probably got started in scouting by either learning Morse code or got introduced to electronics in that way. But Eagle Scout and amateur radio will far surpass in any way somebody being the lead quarterback on their local football team for longevity. And that is hard to get across to parents, but when you put in that context and say, if you're gonna invest time, what's gonna have the bigger payoff? Those two items on a person's resume are a lifelong career thing, because they open so many doors. How many times, probably for you, you've gone to a job interview or you mentioned somebody, oh, I was a scout, second class, whatever it was, or, yeah, I have my amateur radio license. Yeah, I'm only a technician, but I've been around for 10. And that opens those doors for those interviews and real jobs that you're really interested in.
Cool. I'm just curious, how many people in the room are Eagle Scouts? That's a pretty good number of people in the room, considering it's about, what, 2 or 3% of the population, and we got, quite a few.
Need you
right
say
here.
more, right?
Yeah. So, that's where I first heard about amateur radio was Eagle Scouts. John has
I got as far as tenderfoot.
Yeah. How many people in the room are just scouts in general? That's pretty good. Boy Scout, Girl Scout, either one, yeah. So that's something worth saying. It's definitely a potential avenue to grow collegiate amateur radio and really sort of continue the youth involvement. Any other thoughts on satellites? I know we sort of got a tangent there on scouting, but yeah, Sterling.
Sean, KX9X on YouTube mentions doing balloon launches as well as satellite operations in association with hacker spaces and maker spaces in like bigger cities. Because I don't know if like Raleigh or something has a maker space. Is also something worthwhile to consider. And he mentions ballooning as well. For some reason, launching a balloon into space is like a huge media like attention grabber, because you have all these young kids getting interested into science and STEM, and with the pictures coming from space, and that's something that can be easily done. Even simpler than getting like a weather balloon, you can do it with like party balloons and use really light weights. A lot of balloon manufacturers and electronics manufacturers are coming out with much lighter weight. I'm trying to work on a project where we're doing like a crossband repeater on a like 11-gram PCB. So there's something I could use up with from the collegiate, or throw at you guys to
You're gonna publish that, right?
Yeah, it's already on my website. It's just in thought, but ballooning is a big thing too.
Yeah, and I know if you're in Orlando, we got Familab, and they're a huge makerspace. I know Gainesville has a hackerspace. So I think most towns, definitely collegiate towns, will have a makerspace or a hackerspace that you could probably get involved with. And again, that might bring new people into the hobby, not necessarily college students even, but you might just get general people interested in amateur radio through that. And they might be donors as well. So the other big one that was brought up is software-defined radios. And we touched on this earlier about RTL SDRs, but the comments that were brought up were both on the contesting and operational side. It sounded like at least some of the people that responded to the forum question talk on the air and the advantages of an SDR for that, but also for the experimentation side. Just curious, how many collegiate clubs are running an SDR of any type? An RTL SDR or more. So that's pretty much all of us, right? I know we have a Flex 5000A up at UF, and we have the SDR play, and probably a slew of RTL SDRs. Are you guys doing anything with them? I'm assuming if you have a Flex or something like that, you're probably using
Turn
that
it
for
on
contests.
every meeting.
Yeah. But are you guys actively doing any projects? So one of my thoughts, and I was talking to both Bob and Tom about this briefly earlier, was maybe a league bounty of sorts for college clubs around this sort of technology. Imagine if the league put out create an app that uses an RTL SDR to do something, and we'll feature it on our website, and you can download it. Maybe it's a contesting app that, you plug in your radio to that, and it will pull out call signs on PSK for you and just give you sort of a nice waterfall display, so you have a spotter of sorts while you're actually on the air. So that's some of the more maker approaches that I've thought of, to sort of doing this. Has anyone done that within their clubs? We've talked about having CSs involved. Is that something that's of interest? Quiet, so no?
Well, at least with us, I'd say the majority of the people who come on by and are interested enough to show up to a meeting and inquire, I'd say probably at least 90% of them are doing that for some SDR reason. Whether it be some arbitrary protocol use or just they've heard about SDR, they kind of vaguely know what it is and want to know more. So I agree with you.
Half of our members own SDRs, and the satellite project we're working is SDR based. So.
And there's a lot of stuff that you can do. Like you can actually track the NOAA weather birds around 1.7 gig. You can downlink that from one of those cheap RTL SDRs. You don't need a big dish or anything either. You don't get the best image, but you can do it. I've seen that shared on Reddit before.
I think one thing we tried to do, and this kind of depended on equipment availability, was, if we're not in the shack, make our antennas do something. They're just sitting there otherwise. Hook them up to an RTL SDR, make an APRS gate or something, just so that when you're not in the shack, you can turn something on and the antennas are still doing something for you, basically, getting the most out of it.
And that's a cheap lightning arrestor.
I've been thinking of setting up a whisper beacon or drawer speaker, something along those lines for a long time.
Tapper released a Whisper Pi add-on board. Does anyone run that? I run one. I don't know if anyone else does.
They're a little hard to come by.
Yeah.
But we're working on, ARRL is working on a project with FEMA to create a emergency beacon network for JG65 or a version of JG65. In fact, Craig Fugate, who just retired as the head of FEMA, was by the booth about 2 hours ago with Bob and me, and he gave us the charge looking at a beacon which says, I'm okay, I'm not okay, putting it out in the field, It's long range, it's highly reliable, and you can build, we built 3 of them at the W1AW for about $100. Well, the first one was a little more expensive, but about $100 a piece. And that's a neat experiment. Put it up, turn it on. Let's listen to it. The coverage of JT65 is phenomenal. So we'll probably have something out in QST on that soon.
I think the QST issues that have had some of these projects have been really helpful. Do any clubs get QST, or hopefully most of us do? Everyone saw QST just came out, like the newest issue, like yesterday, I think.
Yep.
So this was the antenna issue, so there's some good projects in there on building antennas. But yeah, there's some good projects that have come through on that, from Arduino-based keyers to other things. And I think that, if you're looking for club activities to sort of get people either into SDR or just really active and doing something like that, getting them, an Arduino or getting them a Raspberry Pi and set up and just doing something really, really little like that is a good way to sort of break the ice. I think a lot of people are afraid to transmit their voice when they first get a radio, but yet if they're transmitting, maybe even a whisper on a Raspberry Pi, they don't think of it so much as like it's sort of that, it's not quite a barrier to them, it's not their voice going out to the world, it's, okay, I can do that, I can, and then they see it show up halfway across the country, and they're like, wait, my little Raspberry Pi did that, putting those antennas to work.
You mentioned QST, and one of the things that we've done is created a special label to go over the address label that says, to learn more about amateur radio, contact the Michigan State University Amateur Radio Club. And then on the inside, we actually will glue a separate sheet that has information about the club on it. And we get our members to bring in their old QSTs, and we label them up, and then we disperse them. First thing we do is it's participation. We have a whole bunch of them. So everybody comes by the booth, gets one. But then to just get them out in, dentist and doctor's office and stuff like that.
Can I turn that QST thing around? How would you like to write an article for QST? Our incoming content has fallen off a bit in the last year or so. We don't have that. We used to have like a 13-month, 14-month backlog. It's now down around 12 or 11. How'd you like to have publication credit in your name and go looking for a job? If you've got an interesting project involving a microcomputer, a Raspberry Pi, or a high-altitude balloon, we want to know about it. Our editors really want to know about it. So get in touch with us, get in touch with Steve Ford or Becky Schoenberg at QST Magazine. And we're always hungry for material, if not in QST on our digital edition, or if you're really hot stuff, in QEX, or in some other media that we're working on that we haven't even thought of yet.
Has anyone in the room published in QST or QEX? Wow, just a couple of us. I have an article coming out.
Shirley was an editor at QEX.
Yeah.
So
I had an issue.
right?
Yeah. So you're an editor. I've authored one in QST, and next month in QEX I have an article coming out on DMR actually. So it's how to get started actually with some DMR stuff. Who's the other person that raised their hand? You've done one?
I did one on taking amateur radio into the field for high adventure, taking your radio with you when you're out in the backwoods.
Is there anyone else that's published in them?
Antenna matching in QEX many years ago.
Not enough published.
Yeah, not enough. I mean, it's not hard. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be Shakespeare to write this thing. They will help you through it.
Yeah, should we have Shakespeare? We need ideas.
Yeah, and it's not, they get back to you really quick. Like, whenever I've had an article submitted, I've heard back within like a month or two. It's better than academic journal publications in terms of hearing back. Not like I'm waiting on any of those right now. So,
But please, 400 to 800 words, not fooling. 400 to 800 words.
Yeah.
That's the ideal size.
And they also pay you to publish in them too. So it's totally, it's a good way to raise funds. The article I did in QST, I did with 2 other hams, and it was on School Club Roundup, and we all got some money for it, and we all kicked it back to our clubs. That's what we all sort of agreed, just as putting it back into the system. So it's a good fundraiser as well. Not to mention it's sort of cool to see your name in print. Cool. Well, with that in mind, we have about 10 minutes left, and there's a couple of things left on the agenda. I do want to highlight some upcoming activities. Everyone is aware of School Club Roundup. Happens twice a year. One's in February. What month are we in right now? Right, it's not next week, but the week after. So School Club Roundup's coming up. And then, of course, Dayton Hamcation. I'm suspecting there will be a forum there following up to this forum. I would be shocked if there isn't. And I think we sort of started the ball rolling here, and we need to get this thing to snowball and really to continue to grow. Now that the league's super behind it, we have now community building up behind it. I think this is sort of the next steps. And maybe we need to figure out something to do in the fall in terms of getting everyone together. So, some upcoming activities. JOTA, you said, is...
Third weekend in October, and the National Jamboree is in West Virginia in July. 30,000 scouts will be there in K2 BSA, and also with support from ARRL to be on the air there. Looking for contacts, always looking for contacts for those future engineers and comm-sci people. So
My first QSL card was K2 BSA
there you
National
go.
Jamboree.
There you go.
So definitely get on the air with that. And for those of you who don't know, there is a Yahoo group for School Club Roundup. There's the Facebook group, though, for CARI, and I would encourage everyone to hop on there and post upcoming activities, because there's so many different things it's hard for me to keep track. I know we did an SEC, Collegiate Amateur Radio Day for the last few years, but that was only really advertised between the SEC schools. It wasn't really advertised, out, beyond that. So I think using the Facebook hub, using Reddit, using social media, sort of that, central point is a good idea.
Hey, who's going to write up this for QSD?
I already committed the article. It's actually half written already. So that segues neatly into a couple of other things. First, I do want to call upon Anson. So if you want to, there's 2 slides. So.
Okay, yes. So Anson Schur from UCF. Just after the presentation, we're going to have a little informal social / meetup kind of thing back at the UCF campus. Can show you guys the shack, get up on the air a little bit if you want, and have fun.
Directions?
Yes.
It's about a half an hour.
It is. About a half an hour, or 80% more if you don't want to pay tolls.
Yeah, well, no, it's actually 15 minutes you take for it.
Okay. Depends on what time of day. So 15 to 30 minutes.
And we'll be hanging out there tonight, probably power up the rigs. I don't know if we can use W1AW, stroke 4 or something, but that'd be kind of cool.
You can use K4 UCF if you want.
Yes. Cool. One other thing, and I know this has been happening. Like I said, I am writing a QST article on this. If you have taken photos from Hamcation that involve college habs, I know Scott's already taken a few and put them up on the group. Email them to me, andy@gatorradio.org. I will likely reply with the league's standard photo release so that I can get that process started as soon as possible, because I do want to put together a whole bunch of photos, stories, and pictures and stuff for QST and get that out hopefully before Dayton. So I'm in sort of a writing kick right now. So if you want to get me stuff, dissertations do that to you. So if you want to get me stuff, the sooner the better. Feel free to shoot me a mail. It's andy@gatorradio.org. And I'm going to put that together, and hopefully we can have a really, really big QST feature on this, maybe a cover or something if we can get the photos to do that. So I think with that, that is it. The one last request that I'd like everyone to do is everyone who's here, if you can all come up front in front of the logo, I want to get a big picture, and then after that we have some giveaways courtesy of the league that I'll go over, and then. Yeah, I'm gonna move this.
You know, there's a banner in the middle instead?
Yeah, we're going to all stand in front of the projector.
So where are you working at?
Yes.
I'm neither.
Okay, a row of people who feel like they're comfortable getting on one wheel.
Got your panorama.
We're gonna put you on.
Yeah, that's
How about if you're uncomfortable getting off one?
Know the feeling.
Y'all are gonna have to come over here.
Okay, yeah, you're gonna have to really take a deep breath.
We need some feelers over here.
And some people to help us up.
I'll help you out, Scott. We're going to pick you up and pass you over.
Okay, we're almost there. Just one more deep breath and get closer to each other. And if you can't see the lens on the camera, you're not in the picture. Okay, that looks great. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and thumbs up. And a short video.
Hold on.
Quick, somebody sing the Columbia fight song. Oh, who else?
Yeah, how about get on the air with college amateur radio? Okay, so let's try it real quick. Ready? Get on the air with college amateur radio. Okay, ready? 1, 2.
Get on the air with college amateur radio.
You guys rock. Okay, so before everyone leaves, the league has graciously donated some official ARRL affiliate banners for club stations that are affiliated with the club. So what clubs are represented here today? Can you just send up one representative to Tom Gallagher here? All right, just one representative from each club, and Tom will give you a pennant for your college. And then if we don't have enough, we'll have to get more for you. Help yourself.
All right.
Get a mug. Get Oh my God! If you're listen up for a second. If you're beyond your college years, leave the mugs and the hats for the college students. The handbooks are for everybody. Everyone can have a handbook, and then we'll see what we have left over right after that. So everybody gets a handbook.
Everybody, let's have a big hand for Bob Levitsky, who organized this.
Yeah. Well,